the President and CEO of Leadership Greater Washington. I want to welcome you all to our Frontline Conversation with Andy Shallal. Andy, great to see you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for inviting me, Doug.
Talk about your industry and talk about life in general. So, start
what
off.
industry? Industry's gone.
We'll get to that one second. Let's start off with how are you doing personally?
I'm doing good.
How are things going with your family?
We're doing well. Thank you.
Good, good. So let's talk about COVID. So when that hit, when everybody had to go home, what happened to your business?
Well, everything turned upside down. We had no idea what to do, frankly, at the beginning. You know, you sort of try to wing it. And I think as the leader of the organization, you have to kind of put on the strong face that you have to maintain. Otherwise, everything just starts to fall apart. And I think we really had to come together as a group and kind of make decisions. So I'm very fortunate to have a great team that we quickly gathered and made decisions in the moment. And the decisions were being made, frankly, every 8 hours. You know, we didn't know what to expect. We didn't know what was going on, if we're gonna have to close, how much we're gonna have to close, for how long, who we're gonna have to lay off, who we're gonna have to keep, all those decisions. Lots and lots of decisions have to be made, but they were made collectively. And I think we're doing okay.
So where are you now with your restaurants?
Well, we're looking at the numbers. We've of course, every jurisdiction is different. We have restaurants in 3 different jurisdictions. You know, the DMV is not just one. Fortunately or unfortunately, you know, you have Virginia has now moved into phase 3, where you can actually open up the restaurant pretty much like normal, although it's hardly normal. You have, of course, DC is still in phase 2, which means that you can have some indoors, mostly outdoors, and you have to keep the distancing and all of that. And then you have Maryland, which is still also in that sort of between phase 2 and phase 3. They just haven't gotten, you know, they haven't gotten clear guidance exactly of what we have to do. So the idea of social distancing, which is the 6 feet apart, sounds like a good idea. I mean, from a health perspective, but makes it really difficult to operate a business where people have to intersect with each other. You have staff in the kitchen, you have staff in the front of the house, you have server stations where they have to get close to one another. So it's a lot of unknowns and a lot of mixed messaging, I think, that comes through that makes it really confusing of what to do, what not to do. So we're trying to be super cautious, you know, overdoing it almost to the point where we have cleansing everything and sanitizing at the end of the night. We go through every little corner, sanitize everything at the end of the night. We change things in between seatings. We, you know, have, you know, virtual menus people have to log into, you know, all these things that we have to do. So, and the changes are happening really day by day by day. Every day we learn something new and we try to bring it and incorporate it into the business.
So you first went to takeout and delivery, is that correct?
Well, we were fortunate. I'm sorry?
So how did that business go? How much business did you do during that?
Well, we were fortunate in that we were doing carry out and delivery before then. So we didn't have to make any, you know, new provisions or new software or something like that. We've improved our process of takeout and delivery in the time that we've been open now. And that's been a lifeline, really. It kept us going for at least you know, the first month and a half, where that was the only option that we had. There are lots of delivery services now, and we've honed it. You know, try to maximize the efficiency of that process. So it's good because that's stuff that we're going to keep once we open back to some sort of normal. That's a good thing to have that option be much more nimble.
So your restaurants have always seemed to be, to me, to be much more than just a restaurant. They're a bookstore, there are a lot of things, but they're really gathering places for people. And I'm sort of curious, how does that model fit in with what we have to go through nowadays? And is that going to change your business as you go forward? Again, people would come to your place to gather, to convene, to meet, to be with each other for a lot of different reasons, in addition to getting food. And now we can't really do that. So what does that do to you?
Well, again, it's a, you know, everything is upside down. It's, you know, we are a gathering place. Now we're not supposed to gather. We are a meeting place. You're not supposed to meet. We are, you know, so everything's gone, it's sort of gone backwards. But like any really operator, any entrepreneur, the key to success is being able to pivot quickly and change and adapt, you know? So we're constantly changing and adapting. You know, one of the things though we used to do is we used to have these race, you know, conversations called A Continuing Talk on Race that we've been doing since the beginning, since we opened in 2005. And they've been great conversations. Every month they bring in lots of people, you know, standing room only in the Langston Room at 14th Street, where people come in to hear speakers or intersect with each other and exchange ideas and conversations with one another. And when that ended, you know, because we couldn't gather, we went online, like many organizations, like your organization, LGW is doing that, right? We went online. Thank goodness to the technology that we have today, we're able to do some of these things and maintain some sort of connection with people. Again, I don't think it replaces the human touch. That's never going to be substituted with just a visual on a computer. I think people need to be face to face in the same room at times, but hopefully that will come back sometime in the not too distant future. But we started this Actor Conversation, A Continuing Talk on Race, online, and we collaborate. We're now collaborating with the Maryland Lynching Museum, Lynching Memorial Museum, and the Carter School at George Mason University for peace and conflict resolution. So that's been a great collaboration that we've been doing. And that's, you know, ironically, that's bringing in a lot more people than we normally would have at one of the events we have in-house. So, you know, we have upwards of 300 to 400 to 500 people that show up to these race conversations that wouldn't be able to have that kind of room where we were before. And so that's really useful. We also, you know, are a place for authors and change makers and, you know, celebrities that are in the peace and justice movement. And so we now have gone online where we do these Friday night dinner, Zoom dinner conversations where at 6 p.m. for an hour, I interview, you know, some of the change makers and newsmakers that are happening today. So that's been a lot of fun. That's attracted upwards of thousands of people to each one of those conversations. And that's been a really great way to also connect with our customers, maintain our brand, continue to do what we do, and stay engaged and connected with the folks that have made us who we are over the years.
And who do you have coming up on your Friday night dinner?
I'm sorry?
Who do you have coming up on your Friday night dinner?
This Friday is Top Chef Tom Colicchio is going to be my guest. We've had all kinds of really interesting, exciting speakers. Last week we had Alicia Garza, one of the founders of the Black Lives Matter movement. We've had Abraham Kendi. We've had Michael Eric Dyson. We've had lots of really great people, and we're going to be having Michael Moore. We're going to be having Cory Booker. We're going to be having Alice Walker, and people like that. Juno Diaz, lots of different great speakers, authors, change makers. So that's exciting. And it's 6 p.m. every Friday.
So you made a major statement a while ago by opening a restaurant in Anacostia. And then there was some vandalism, I think, at the restaurant at the beginning of the righteous unrest. How did you respond to that, and what was the outcome of all that?
Well, you know, I think it was a couple of days after we stopped serving in-house through the mandate that the mayor put out for DC. Somebody threw a rock through one of our windows and broke it and jumped in, walked behind the bar, grabbed the cash register drawer and ran out. I guess he later found out that the cash register was empty, so he didn't really take anything, and there was no serious vandalism, honestly. It was just a broken window, which wasn't that big of a deal. The next day, we called someone to come and put some plywood on it, and the plywood looked really ugly, just wood. So we painted it black, and I thought, well, I'm going to put some art on it. And I'm always about kind of like finding a moment and kind of pivoting it and changing it and turning into positive energy, because the negative energy can only beget more negative energy, and I didn't want to have that happening. So we painted on the plywood Busboys, Heart, and Acostia. And the amount of outpouring of support and love that we received from that far outshined the incident, obviously. We were very, very thrilled to see how much loved we are by the community, how much community really wanted us there. And, this was an anomaly. I mean, it was a kid, who, we saw it on tape, like whatever, stuff happens. So it gave me an idea to start doing that in the other locations. So we have lots of artists that we are connected to. We are an artist community as well, Busboys and Poets. So we called our artist friends and we said, how would you like to earn a little money and do some art? And of course, they're at home. That's what they want to do, is go out and do their art and show it to people. So they were very, very excited. So we hired several of them to paint different windows. And then I heard from Jose Andres, the great chef, which I'll be interviewing soon also on one of my podcasts or one of my Zoom calls. And Jose said, can we have our windows painted in my spaces? And so we send out artists to his places throughout DC. He's got, I think, 4 or 5 places in DC that we ended up painting some things there. And we put out a call for anyone that wants an artist to go paint. We paid for it. And if they want to make a donation, that was fine, but we didn't require it. But we sent out artists all over the DMV area to paint windows because the windows were closed. And frankly, it was kind of, if you're in the restaurant business, it's a pretty depressing time when that happened, right? All of a sudden you stop serving, your place is dark. There's, people walking down the street, the patios are empty. This is at the beginning, and it was kind of demoralizing. And I think putting up positive messages of inspiration and hope and possibilities really gave people a chance to pause for a moment and do think like this too shall pass, hopefully sooner than later. So that really gave hope in a sense for not only for the operators of those spaces, but also for the people walking by to be able to look out the window and say, oh, this is really cool, So we put all these beautiful messages on every window all over the city, and it took off. I mean, it's a hashtag paint the storefronts, and it's gone all over the country. There are places as far as Seattle that are doing it. So we're really excited that this happened.
Andy, that's remarkable. So something that just started with a broken window, turned into this national movement.
Yeah.
What'd you say was hashtag?
Hashtag paint the storefronts.
Hashtag paint the storefronts. Oh, that's great. Congratulations.
It's a lot of fun.
I've always been a believer in the ability, or frankly, the need for the arts to be part of any kind of downtown, any kind of urban setting, not just the visual arts, but performing arts as well, as a way to bring people together and to make people feel better about where they live and work.
Well, what's funny, I think a lot of people thought that they'd be there until they opened, and they'll wash the windows off and get back to normal. But they've kept the art. They've added more. Some of these places that we put art on the windows, they've hired their own artists now to come and do even more elaborate storefronts. So it's been really cool to see it. I'm walking down the street and see these gorgeous murals of all kinds of ideas. Of course, Black Lives Matter then became a big deal, for all the protests and things that are going on. And so lots of people are putting Black Lives Matter things on there, things of solidarity, things of hope, things of, so it's really interesting how art can sort of galvanize a community in a way that nothing else can. It's really exciting to see it happen.
So Bettina Stern just put a shout out to you, thanking you for painting her windows on her restaurant.
Oh, that's cool.
Great.
Cool. Cool. It was our pleasure.
Yeah. So in terms of the future of the restaurant industry, you start off saying there is no industry anymore. We have a few questions.
I was joking.
We have one from Todd Turner saying, what is the future of the restaurant industry? I read a story in the Washington Post about ghost food halls. Of you just sort of prepare the food and then push it out through the door to people. Where do you think we're headed?
There's so many ideas that you have no idea. I mean, the thing about this pandemic, like when was the last time we had one, right? Not in our lifetime, certainly. It's been a while. You know, the idea that something comes along that says, okay, you can reboot and restart everything. What would that be? Like, that is the coolest thing ever, right? For someone to give you that opportunity to say, let's start over. Everybody start from a new starting line. And it's like, okay, now you can look at it, you know, or two ways. You can look at it as, well, this is horrible. I was doing fine. I can't believe that they're doing this to me. Or you can say, okay, let's rethink things, you know? So obviously, I think people that are entrepreneurs are used to having, you know, these curveballs thrown at them from every direction. So they sometimes, I think a lot of us are prepared at some level to expect the unexpected. This was beyond unexpected, I guess, but it gives you a chance to really pause. So we really rethinking a lot of things. As I told my management team and our staff, I said, we can't go back to the old normal. We got to find a new way, because we were imperfect and we had so much more that we could do. And this is opportunity to become closer to what we want to be. And so everything from our labor practices to our the use of technology, to the use of our, you know, online services, our online Zoom calls and other ways to connect with people, not only in our DMV area, but all over the world, frankly. All of these things are opportunities that I think really have made the industry kind of rethink itself. You know, the restaurant industry has always had kind of a troubled relationship with labor in particular. And one of the things that's always been is that tipped workers make a sub-minimum wage. That's always been problematic. Yeah, now people are supposed to, restaurants make up the difference. You make, you know, $4 or $5 an hour as a server, but you have to make at least enough to meet the minimum wage. And then if you don't, the operator has to make up the difference. But nonetheless, that sub-minimum wage creates all kinds of unintended problems and consequences when it comes to somebody really wanting to have a real career, being able to go and get, let's say, some credit, or be able to apply for an apartment or a car loan or something like that. You know, you don't show as much income, it becomes problematic, and then you end up falling behind further and further because you're outside that grid. And I think we're rethinking that. We're rethinking how that works, and we're trying to go to a minimum wage that is one minimum wage, which is $15 an hour right now across the board. We're trying to think in terms of how do we make up for the difference, because servers tend to make up a large portion of the workforce in the restaurant business. So you know, we don't want to be stupid about it. We want to make sure that we're, you know, continue to thrive and survive. So, you know, rethinking all of these things has been really exciting, I have to say, despite the obstacles that this pandemic has brought about. I think it has brought about an equal number of opportunities that for the operator who doesn't take advantage of them, they're just being foolish and squandering an opportunity that probably will never come back in our lifetime. So I think it's exciting to see this happen, and at some level, and we're trying to take the full advantage of the moment to make sure that we come back stronger, better, more connected.
I agree with you that this is a great time for innovation, and at LGW, as you mentioned, we're doing things completely differently than we've done before, but we're getting a better response. We're providing greater value to our members through the offerings that we have now, such as these conversations. Amy Harbison wanted to know, where does your excitement, your sense of adaptability come from, and where did you learn to be a bridge builder?
You know, you learn to adapt when you're in business. There's no question. I mean, I remember so many situations. We've had fires, we've had floods, we've had, you know, toilets that back up in the middle of brunch. We've had, you know, people quit in the middle of a shift. We've had fire, you know, a Ansel system go off in the middle of a busy day. So you learn, you know, you either adapt or you just quit and leave the business. I mean, I have friends that are saying, I can't do this anymore. They just shut down the door and walk away. That happens. I think it takes a certain type of person. I don't stress. I have to admit, like, I know people have stress issues. I do not stress. I don't know what that is. I'm fortunate. I'm really I don't understand what stress is. So when people say that they're stressed out, I don't know what that means. To me, like, I live for stress. I live for excitement. I live for things that are unpredictable. So I love that kind of energy. It gives me a lot of energy to have that. The idea of a bridge builder, I think, comes from the fact that I've always felt out of place. I've never felt connected. I've never felt like I was part of any group or community. And it's always given me that sort of, kind of hovering approach to watching everybody else beneath, and kind of learning and observing and seeing where the moments are that need to be bridged. So, I, as a person from the Middle East, I'm Arab, I'm Muslim, I am brownish, coming to America as a young child and being in that kind of space where America is so polarized racially, still is, put me in this awkward place of the other. And the other is always, I think something, especially for children, is not a place that is comfortable. So you learn to be uncomfortable. You learn to live with the discomfort, and you learn to find your place as that person that sort of connects different groups together, because you're the other. The other tends to play that role sometimes, when you're dealing with issues of conflict. So I've enjoyed that role of being the outsider now. I used to hate it. Now I love it. I love the idea of being the outsider. I love the idea of being different. I love the idea of fitting in and not fitting in at the same time, and in different groups and organizations. And I think it gives me more of an insight from different groups. So if I'm in a Black community, I can relate in a very unique way to that community. If I'm in a white community, I can relate to that group in a very unique way. If I'm in a Latino or other type of community, I can also relate to them in a different way. And I think I'm seen as someone that could fit maybe closer to all those groups and not feel like completely on the outside. So that's been great. I love and savor the role of the bridge builder.
So Andy, it's now time for my shameless plug, where you have never felt any sense of community until you joined Leadership Greater Washington, and it just flowed on to you.
Actually, it was really great. The class of 17, the non-stoppers. It's been great because it was much to my surprise, it was such a diverse group of people. I didn't know that, I didn't know much about LGW before then. And when I attended, the folks that are there are a true representation of the DMV. And that was really exciting to see the different ideas, the different backgrounds they bring, and all of them kind of with a goal of making this DMV area more exciting and more livable. So that was really cool.
So Faye Colvin's got a question for you, and I want to just say that you mentioned earlier about putting yourself in the shoes of others and trying to see things from their point of view. Her question is, what do you do with patrons who refuse to wear a mask or who refuse to socially distance? And it's really it's something very bothersome to me, because it's turned into, here's something I can do. I can wear a mask to help my neighbor.
Right.
It's turned into, how dare you tell me to wear a mask? You're infringing on my individual right to infect anybody I want to. I don't get it. And yet we're seeing, parts of the country where this has become a big rallying cry. So have you had to deal with that in your restaurants, and what's been your response?
Well, we fortunately live in an area that's probably less prone to that kind of interaction than maybe other areas in the country. People here are fairly well educated. They're fairly well connected. They stay abreast of the news. They understand what needs to happen, and I think that's really that's good. You know, we try to be gentle with folks rather than hit them over the head with things. So if somebody was to come in and say, you know, I don't want to wear a mask, maybe we'll ask them to sit outside. Maybe we'll offer them a mask. We have extra masks that we keep on hand just to make sure that someone that comes in that may have forgotten their mask or didn't wear one can have one. You know, I think, you know, it's sometimes I think we try to make a point with these things. You know, one person not wearing a mask at one time is not going to create the end of the world. I mean, I'm a little bit more agnostic about it, frankly, and I will kind of gently, you know, bring them to a space that is less confrontational. It's very easy to say wear a mask and take that sort of high road that I'm, you know, so much smarter and better and more informed than you are. You know, clearly that's probably true, but still, you want to be able not to hit somebody over the head with something like that, because chances are, you know, there's people that don't, they're, you know, we are, as Americans, are so used to having, you know, our individual rights, you know, protected, and we hate when somebody tells us to do something that for whatever reason. I mean, I don't enjoy wearing a mask. I'll be honest with you. It's not something that, especially 95-degree weather outside, and you're walking and you've got this thing on your face that prevents you from breathing fully. It's clearly not a good situation for you. So it's a forced thing you have to do. So I understand why people don't want to wear it. I understand it. I see why they don't. But we are a public space, and we have to protect others, and we have to make sure that they don't put other people at risk. So we try to be as gentle as possible. Our staff tends to be, I mean, all of our staff wears masks at all time. That's not. There's no exceptions there. Occasionally, somebody might come in and for whatever reason they don't wear a mask. Now you have to remember that we're a restaurant, so you have to take off your mask at some point to eat. So that is not an option, right? So, you know, somebody will take off their mask and will eat something and may get up to go to the bathroom without their mask on. Now, what do? Do you stop them midway and say, go put your mask on and come back? Or do you just say, let it go? I mean, I'm of the mind to say, let it go, because by stopping them, you're actually creating more of a hazard. By having them go back and forth again, it's another, you know, chance of, you know, being out in the open and so on. So just let it go at some point. So I think sometimes people tend to be very self-righteous about it and want to make a point. And I am the mindset of being less so and not being so aggressive about it.
So we've got a question from Mahan Tavakoli, our chair, who commends you on your adaptability to going virtual and doing that. And he wants to know, what's that done to your bottom line? Are all these extra people coming to your Friday night dinners and other things? Are they also buying from your restaurant?
Well, yeah, hopefully some of them are. We encourage people to order online. Obviously, a lot of people may not be in the area. They may be from different states, different countries, who knows? But we encourage people to support local independent businesses. That's really my goal, is if you can support other local businesses, it makes for a better economy across the board. So yes, we encourage them to buy Busboys and Poets, but we also encourage them, if they cannot, to shop at their local independent business. So on that night, we do see an uptick in our business, so that's great. There's no, I mean, our model used to be, you know, we'd have an event, people come in and they order food because they have to be there, and anyway, so they're going to order something. That's changed. They, you know, on the Zoom calls, they're free. You don't pay for them. You just have to sign up. And so that's been, you know, we've discussed it internally, but it's also about building your brand. It's also about setting yourself up for post, pandemic situation. I mean, I hope everybody assumes we'll get some post out of this somewhere, right? This will come to an end at some point. It may take a year, it may take 6 months, who knows? But I think we're all hopeful that this will not continue forever. And so those that have stayed, those organizations that have stayed in the public space, they've continued to have their brand out there, I think are the ones that are going to come back and find the loyalty of their customers, maintained. So a part of it is building, customer loyalty and all that. It's not always monetary, immediate monetary benefits. There's other benefits that are sometimes far more important that we need to also have. So that's why we keep doing them.
So Carla Reed is asking, what would you, looking back over the last few months, what would you have done differently if you could go back in time and change it? What leadership lessons have you learned from this experience?
I tend to sometimes, they tell you not to sit on your laurels. I don't know what that means, but it means like you don't do anything when things are good. So I think I've maybe been a little bit too much in that space, and maybe being a little bit more proactive in kind of staying ahead. I think might have been a better may have prepared us more for this kind of situation. I don't know if anyone can prepare for a pandemic, frankly. I just don't know. I mean, I think they will from now on at some level. Of course, we'll never have one again, but hey, who knows? We may not. But it's hard to think in terms of preparing for a pandemic, because preparation is costly sometimes. Preparation is not just you just think about it. You have to prepare for it. You have to have provisions for it. You have to have things in place that are ready to go when it happens. I am more of a pivoter than a preparer. I have a brother-in-law that has a basement full of stuff should the apocalypse happen. So I have nothing in my basement. All right, we would just die. I don't know what we would do. My plan is to head to one of my restaurants really fast. That's my plan. But there are people that have those things. He's got his dry goods. He's got his beans. He's got his guns. He's got his stuff. It's crazy, right? And I don't have any of those things, and I don't know what will happen if the apocalypse hits. So I don't prepare at that level, I have to admit. I like to pivot. I pivot quickly, and I think that's the key. It's not so much being prepared, physically prepared for things, but mentally prepared, I think is also equally important. And I think I am mentally prepared for changes. Like I said before, I try not to stress out. So my immediate thing is like, okay, let's get it done. And what is it going to take? I have a few people that give ideas back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Within an hour, we have a plan. And within 2 hours, the plan is getting implemented. So that's the preparation that I do.
So I think we're very similar in those ways. You talked about resting on your laurels, and I've always thought that I've never been of the opinion of what have I done for you lately. I've always thought, what am I going to do for you tomorrow?
Yeah.
It's the next thing we're going to do. Always looking to the future, always looking to change, to adapt, to modify, to be ready for whatever comes our way. That's exactly what you were talking about. So you mentioned sort of being pragmatic, pivoting. You mentioned being an outsider. How much of a part did that play in your run for mayor?
Okay.
It's a personal question, but as a former elected official, I'm always interested in that.
No, it's fine. For me, I think I always feel that politicians need to be pushed. They're there to serve the public, and sometimes they are there, just they put their finger up to the wind and see where things are going, and they head in that direction. They tend to be less about rocking the boat and more about sort of maintaining kind of a steady hand at the helm. And my idea is like, you know what, the boat needs rocking. I think the boat needs to be rocked, and I felt like I was going to get in there to rock the boat and see what happens, because I do believe, I think a lot of the things that I was speaking about and fighting for were things that we're seeing happen today. I mean, the fact that we still live in a city here in DC that is truly a tale of two cities, seeing what's happening with the coronavirus and how it's impacting people in Ward 7, Ward 8 far more significantly than it's affecting people in the other wards, let's say in Ward 3 or Ward 2. I think that speaks a lot about how divided the city is, and this is nothing new. It's been like that for decades. And so I wanted to speak to that, seeing that the city was prospering, but yet the prosperity did not seem to trickle down to the folks that needed the most. And I think oftentimes we think in terms of, especially those of us that are successful, that have made it and so on, we always think in terms of, the rising tide lifts all boats. Well, that is probably one of the worst sayings out there. I don't think it's true at all. Rising tides lift higher boats even higher, and the lower boats stay below. In fact, they not only they stay below, but they get they get a lot more turbulence. And I'll share with you just a short story how that came to me. I was in the Anacostia River on a canoe with my wife, and we were canoeing from the boathouse over by the bridge all the way up to the botanical garden, not the botanical gardens, but what is that place? The garden, the big garden place. Somebody knows it, I'm sure. Anyway, there's a place you can go up the Anacostia River, and then you can just go there and you can park or dock the boat and then go have a nice little picnic there. So we were there early in the morning, and we got there and we stayed there for half the after. The Arboretum, thank you, the National Arboretum. So we were there, and we enjoyed it, and it was a lot of fun. And we ended up coming back. On the way back, the tide was rising, and it was rising fiercely, and it was windy. And so the boat was so unsteady. The boat was really problematic. And big boats were going by. They were having a grand old time. Their motors are on, their hair is flowing in the wind, and their people are just like having a great time on the boat. And we are like, struggling and having a very difficult time with it. So much so that I had to pull off to the side, to the bank, let my wife off so I can maybe go, quicker. That was a bad idea because you need the weight in order for the boat to be steadier. But anyway, the short end of the story is that the boat capsized. And I fell in the Anacostia River, and I'm here to tell the story that I'm still alive. So I fell in the Anacostia River, and I thought, this is really interesting. The high tide lifts all boats, but destroys the little ones. And it really is true. It's a metaphor that I believe is so true. And so I one of the reasons why I ran, it was really kind of to say, no, you can't just keep lifting, all boats. You got to pour a lot more effort into the little boats and make sure that they rise higher than they were. So I saw the disparity in housing. I saw disparity in healthcare. I saw disparity in education, across the board, almost, in every metrics, there was huge amounts of disparity. And we're seeing it today, of course, in healthcare with COVID. So I thought, I need to run. Because nobody's going to talk about this stuff. People shy away from it. And I thought I'd just be that obnoxious candidate that brings it up at every meeting. I wanted to win, but I didn't. But that's beside the point.
So Andrew Shallal wants to know, what can DC do, the DC government do, to make it easier for entrepreneurs, to make it easier for people to create and start businesses in the district?
Well, DC is improving. I have to say, it's improving. I think even you see with the coronavirus, it even opened up more opportunities. Right now, the patios have gotten bigger. They're starting to close streets so that we can have patios on the streets. Suddenly, like DC discovered Europe. It's like this has been going on forever in other parts of the world, and we just discovered that, oh, you can actually close streets. Oh, you can actually put patio chairs out there and make it into a really fun, festive, communal kind of experience. So I think that's been great. I think the coronavirus and the pandemic has forced municipalities to become much more entrepreneurial and much more business friendly. Like for instance, people can order liquor to go. That's something that we never would have had the possibility of that if it wasn't for this. I think there are many initiatives that need to happen to keep small local independent businesses alive and thriving. Big developers have had a big run here in DC. They've done really well, but oftentimes I think the smaller businesses are not able to survive in this kind of environment, especially the rentals, the leases in prime areas have become untouchable. For a small business, there's no way you can make it. If you're not a multinational corporation with very deep pockets, you cannot make it in those kinds of spaces. So if we don't put some kind of brakes, some kind of regulations, I think we'll end up with just every multinational restaurant there, and the city will look like every other city everywhere, anywhere. The idea is that if you really want to preserve the character of a city, you want to make sure you encourage the small local entrepreneurs to thrive. That's what gives a city its flavor, its character. Those beautiful little stores, that are unique and specific to that community, that area. So I think the city can do maybe something to help, give to incentivize developers to give priority to small local businesses as opposed to multinationals. I had a nice location at my 5th and K space in Northwest DC. And the developer there, Edens and Avant, now they call themselves Edens, they really kind of forced me out of there by increasing the rent substantially. And I was fortunate that I was able to find a place across the street for half the rent. It was a landlord that was much friendlier and willing to make concessions. And when I asked Edens, I said, why did you raise my rent so high? Like, what gives you the okay for that? And they said, well, because the Apple store was coming in at the Carnegie. And I don't know what Apple pays. I imagine they pay ungodly amounts of money. Of course, they make ungodly amounts of money. I can't, make $7,000-8,000 a square foot in sales as Apple does. So it's a very different formula. So when Apple comes in and willing to pay, $150, $200 a square foot, whatever they pay, that makes my $60, $70 a square foot look like nothing. So landlords look and say, hey, if I can get 200, why am I getting 60 or 70? And now, greed plays into this. It's like, okay, what can we do? How can we squeeze even more? Well, small independent restaurants aren't going to be able to squeeze anymore, So it's been a problem, and I think the city needs to get engaged and involved if we're going to maintain its character.
So I've got a question from Tanya Sweeney, who's asking, what's your advice to higher ed students as they look to pivot to a successful future given what's happening today? How can they plan for the future?
For young kids that are graduating? Well, I have a daughter that's coming out of law school that is not sure what she's going to do. I said, believe me, lawyers will be fine in this process. So that's not going to be an issue. I think being flexible is key. I think a lot of times people have this sort of career idea that I'm going to come out, I'm going to make, $150,000 off the bat, and then $150,000 off the bat, I'm going to make it, I'm going to buy this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to, I think sometimes you have to be flexible and willing to take maybe not the perfect job that you had dreamed about, and use every opportunity as not only a way to build your resume, but a way to make connections and do other things. So working in a nonprofit or working for an organization like LGW, for instance, might be an option that you may have not thought of. You probably thought you're going to go work for corporate America, and this may not be the perfect time for it. But certainly getting your chops, ready and making sure that you have the experience and the connections can be a huge, stepping stone for future success. So imagine somebody working in LGW having access to all this leadership in DC. I assume you don't pay a ton for your admin folks and so on, and that's fine. But they're getting so much out of it. Now they're not going to stay there forever, but they're going to use this stepping stone to do much better in the future. So I think sometimes you got to think in terms of start small and think in terms of opportunities that are being opened up for you, even if it's not as much paying as you would like to have it.
So Anna Bard complimented you on your work for the Movement Voter Project. She wants to know,
oh yeah,
what issues are you passionate about? What causes are you passionate about? And where would you like to see LGW members step forward and help?
Well, I mean, I think for me, the biggest issue has always been in this country and in my life has been race. The issue of race has always been at the forefront because I don't believe that America can be a great place unless it deals with its race issues. And I think it's dealing with it right now because it's being forced to do so. And that's good and bad. And I wish that we were able to deal with this a lot sooner than this, because for me, it's the most significant issue in America. It affects everything. Race affects everything in America. It affects, of course, we're seeing the policing. It affects schools. It affects healthcare. It affects who you marry. It affects where you live. It affects, everything that happens to us. And I think for a lot of white folks, I think, race is something they like to put behind them because they look at themselves saying, I'm not racist. What's going on? My friends aren't racist. So this must not be an issue. And I think as Abraham Kendi has reminded us, not just about not being racist, it's about being anti-racist. What are you doing to actually be an anti-racist? And I think that's the key for us to really kind of start focusing in terms of what are we doing in our day-to-day life? What are we doing with our friends? What are we doing with our families? What are we doing when we're walking down the street? What are we doing when we're engaging with people in our workplace when it comes to issues of race? Are we being an anti-racist? Are we calling people out when we need to without hitting them on the head? I mean, calling people a racist is not very useful, but asking them the questions and letting them think about it is. And I think more and more people are getting invested in that. Race has always been very important to me because it affected me personally, when I first opened Busboys and Poets, one of the first things people asked was, is the owner Black? Which I thought was interesting. That's why we started this conversation on race. The idea of having conversation on race was significant and important. We are long overdue for truth and reconciliation in this country. When it comes to race, we are long overdue for reparations when it comes in this country. And I want to encourage smaller communities like DC and Prince George's County and Montgomery County and other to actually do their own form of reparations. I mean, the town of Asheville, North Carolina right now has started a reparations project, right? The city council voted unanimously to give reparations to Black residents. What exactly that's going to look like, whether it's monetary, whether it's otherwise, is still being debated. But at least the opportunity is there. The idea of reparations is no longer a dirty word. So, I think people are starting to really think in terms of how can we get beyond this race issue? It's not going to be just about putting a hashtag of Black Lives Matter. That's a good start, but it's also about really kind of coming with solutions, with ways that are going to bridge this enormous gap that's gone on for over 400 years in this country that needs to be somehow reconciled. And I think once we do that, we'll be a much better country.
Andy, that's a great introduction to LGW's next Thought Leadership Series, which is on anti-racist leadership, run by Howard Ross. And it starts tomorrow morning. So if you have signed up for it, great. If you haven't registered, please do that. And it's a quick session series. And
I talk to Howard all the time, so I get the inside scoop before it happens.
Any good news you want to share with us?
I'm sorry,
Any good news from the last couple of months you want to share with us?
Oh, yeah, I think we are seeing that that this country is waking up. You know, that people are starting to recognize that there is a problem that we need to address. And I feel very fortunate living in this time of huge change that's really that we're witnessing. I mean, we're witnessing a paradigm shift in a way, right? Which is really exciting. Like, how many times do you live through a paradigm shift? Those are huge. Those take forever to happen. And for us to suddenly see young white kids out in the street saying Black Lives Matter and say her name and say his name is quite remarkable, frankly. I never thought I'd see it. I mean, honestly, after the election of Donald Trump, I thought about leaving this country. I mean, really. I mean, I've been here a long time. I thought about, like, this is not a country that is friendly to me, to people that look like me, to people that are from my part of the world. And therefore, I don't think it belongs to me, because it exposed the egregious, racism that still lingers in this country in a very serious way. And I thought, you know what, this is terrible. And then days later, you see white people in the street demonstrating. And suddenly you get the sense of hope, the sense of possibility that there are people that care. And particularly white people, because when white people start caring is when it starts to really have an impact. Others have cared a lot, but white people have the luxury of not having to care. And so to see them out in the street, putting their bodies on the line and standing up and doing what they have to do has been a remarkable thing to see. So I'm super stoked about this. I think this is really exciting to see. I never thought it would happen. I've always wondered, like, why haven't we gone through like, major riots? We've had little major riots, but they end very quickly. I am very grateful for Donald Trump to be the president that we have today, because had it not been for him, had it not been for his over-the-top craziness, I don't think we would have had this moment. This moment had to be a perfect storm. It had to bring Donald Trump. It had to bring the coronavirus. It had to bring the Black Lives Matter movement. It had to bring all these elements together, people at home, and it had to bring George Floyd. It had to bring Breonna Taylor and others for it to happen. So any of those ingredients missing, this moment could have just passed. But because of that, I think we are in a much, much better place, and we're heading in a much better place, I hope, here in this country.
Andy, I want to thank you very much for your time today. We'll let that be the final word for this conversation. Great to talk to you. Thank you for all you're doing for the community. Congratulations on this national paint the shop movement that you're doing.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Paint the storefronts.
Paint the storefronts. I apologize for that.
No
Hashtag
problem.
paint the storefronts. And again, great to see you, and I hope we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much.